Well, thank you so much. Thanks for this transition. And in fact, as you were mentioning earlier on, Terry, it's quite nice when the previous panel ends on what the next one is going to start. So to start with this new round of tech presentations, we're going to have someone who's going to be talking to us about acoustic noise levels. You know, what does this mean and how you can measure them, and well, I will let him speak. So I would like to call here to the stage Manfred Krüger, Technical Manager at IABG on behalf of TenneT. Welcome.
Is this put on? Yes. So, good afternoon, everybody, again. So this talk will be about a new prediction method for acoustic noise levels. So, for offshore works in the North Sea, ammunition from world wars may be detected, and in that case, they might be detonated on-site if it's not possible to deploy them. So in that case, mitigation measures have to be installed regarding the acoustic noise levels. This is mainly done by bubble curtain installations, in this case, double bubble curtains. And also in this case, you want to know in advance which acoustic noise levels are to be expected for this specific configuration. So you have an unexploded ordnance at a certain water depth. So you want to know in advance at which distance which noise levels are to be expected. So our contribution here in this study is to bring the prediction method up to a next level in terms of more accuracy and account for the specific configuration that's given here. So the equivalency of TenneT and the water depth. How do we do this? We have an approach with an in-house code called DYSMAS. We conduct simulation with the code in terms of parametric study, analyze the pressure signals, and then derive analytical prognosis formula. So here, given as an overview all the relevant data for this. On one hand, here on the right side, you can see the relevant acoustic noise levels. This is the sound exposure level, as well as the sound pressure level. On the left is given the numbers, values, or quantities for regarding the dual noise safety criterion for the SEL and LPPK, and also given the minimum requirements for a bubble curtain installation here for this a double bubble curtain. So how are we going to do this? I mentioned already we have an in-house code called DYSMAS, a simulation program. So our main focus at IABG is to conduct shock analysis on maritime platforms like surface vessels or submerged structures. So we build up a so-called digital twin of this platform, this vessel, and analyze the response of the ship due to the external loading. And to get the response of the maritime platform correctly, you have, of course, need to simulate the loading correctly. So within the last decades, we gathered a lot of expertise in underwater explosion phenomena. And for this expertise, we can also conduct these bubble curtain simulations. Also, in the last years, we brought in a specific model to model bubble curtains. In general, on the fluid side, fluid materials are modeled by an equation of state, like air, water, and seabed. Same is done here in this case for bubbly water. So you have water entrained with air bubbles. And this model accounts specifically for this kind of configuration. Preliminary, we tested and validated this model against experiments from literature. Here is given some experiment in a test pond. So you have a test pond in the middle filled with water, and in the middle a bubble curtain, and right in the bubble curtain a small explosive is positioned, and with pressure gauges recorded the pressure data, and we could validate this experiment quite well, quite nicely with the simulation code. So back to our parametric study. What did we do? You can see here the typical configuration that we were addressing in this case. We set up conditions similar to the North Sea conditions. So we have a water column, a specific water depth. We have the seabed and the state-of-the-art bubble curtain installed here in this case. You can see it as the two columns. And on the left positioned half-buried charge of TNT or TNT equivalent mass. And with this configuration, we now did parametric studies. We were varying the charge mass as well as the water depths. And also you can see on this sketch, we have gauges 2 meters above seabed to record the pressure signals. And from these pressure signals, we can calculate the relevant noise levels like LPPK and SEL. And these noise levels we use to do regression on the results in order to get an analytical approach. Just to give you an impression which effects are relevant here in this case, I've just given you here an example case. On the left, you have the explosion bubble. From the left towards the right, the primary shock wave is propagating. The top picture shows the reference case without any bubble curtain installed, so no mitigation measures. And on the bottom, at the same time, you have the same configuration, but now with a double bubble curtain installed. And you can already see the difference here. The shock wave, the primary shock wave, is interacting with the first ring of the double bubble curtain. And you can see here also all kinds of subsequent effects like rarefaction wave from the water surface. You have a shock wave propagating through the seabed, inducing a head wave that's running ahead of the shock wave in the water, and also all kinds of cavitation effects. On the next slide, that's the same configuration, but a little bit later in time. So here you can see in the reference case, you can still see the shock wave propagating. Cavitation effects are running behind that shock wave. And if you look at the lower picture with the double bubble curtain installed, you can see that the shock wave here now is almost mitigated compared to the reference case. So that's a good sign. The bubble curtain does its work. So it's really mitigating the shock wave. And what you can also see here is that the subsequent cavitation effects are much more reduced than for the reference case. So what we did then is to do regression on all the results that we gathered. So we have simulation results on different charge masses, on different water depths. And as you can see here, it's a little bit complicated, this diagram, because it shows the sound levels against the scaled radius. So it's not the radius, the distance itself, it's a scaled radius. But you can see that compared to similitude equations, the bubble curtain mitigates the shock pressure, as well as here the sound levels. And you can do linear regressions on these results. And that leads finally to the prognosis formula that we introduced. We have on the right top the two prognosis formulas for the LPPK and the SEL. So these constitute mainly of two terms. One is coming directly from the regressions of the simulations with the simulation code DYSMAS, basically as a polynomial approach. And the second term accounts for far-field absorption effects. So DYSMAS solves the Euler equations. That's a special set of equations. And compared to the Navier-Stokes equations, the viscous effect as well as thermal conduction, heat conduction is neglected. So with the simulation code, we can't account for these dissipation, absorption effects. So this is done by empirical equations. Pardon? Yeah. So, and the prognosis formula is valid for quite a long distance, so up to from 125 meters to 50 kilometers away from the detonation, for charge masses 10 kilograms to 1,000 kilograms, as well as for water depths of 20 meters up to 35 meters. And this is a typical result in the diagrams for the LPPK and the SEL. You have the linear section from regression, and for the far field, you get some extra curvature from the absorption effects. This we skip. So what did we do? We derived analytical prognosis formulas for predicting noise levels of an index event using a reference double bubble curtain system. Preliminary validation efforts on measured data from unexploded ordnance detonations show good to excellent match, and also a user-friendly Excel sheet is available for application. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much for this presentation. While we wait to see if there are, there it is. Yeah, you can have a question. Yeah. In the meantime, just a quick question for you, Manfred. So this is very interesting in terms of predicting the noise. Who would this be useful to? Who would come to you and say, I need this kind of technology?
Well, it's, as I said, it's, you want to know in advance which noise levels are to be expected at a certain distance in order not to harm all the sea life, like sea mammals. So you need to know at which distance you need to have, how do they call it, sea scarer. This, if you know this prior to the detonation and you have a trust in the accuracy of this prediction, maybe you in the future you don't need any more additional measurement on that. So that would accelerate the process of detonation and deployment of the ammunition.
So safer and faster.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The question, please.
Thank you, Manfred, for your illustrative presentation. My name is Sven Kuczynski. I have a company called Meereszoologie, and I'm underway in marine protected area management, and this is exactly the kind of persons who would ask you these questions. And I'm interested in the part where where the seismic shock wave, which travels ahead of the signal in the water, enters the water column again. So from your graph with the double bubble curtain, it appears that this is not very significant because I know usually if you only look at the dBs and at the noise level, there's a limit in the effectivity of a bubble curtain. But if the re-entering seismic shock wave loses its impulsiveness, this might not be a problem. Can you say something about this?
Well, you raised a good point because I would call it like tunneling effect of the shock wave entering first, because the munition is sitting on the bottom, and the primary shock wave is going directly into the bottom, and at some point tunneling the mitigation measures. That's correct. The direct shock wave is, of course, at much larger magnitude. So the double bubble curtain works, and does it work? But of course, you end up in some kind of residual acoustic noise level that you can't mitigate. Because as you could see from the figures, from the pressure distribution, after tunneling the bubble curtain, it will couple in again the water, which you can't really get rid of. So that's a fact. It's a residual.
Thank you. We have time really for just one question, but quick one.
Thank you. Look at me. I'm still Ad van Riel, RIA0 from the Netherlands. What we do mainly is before we start working, etc., we put small charges, and that takes hours before already in the area to chase away mammals or whatever to the maximum. And yes, we use also a double bubble curtain, hoping it has enough effect. But we chase, before we start, we chase already hours before as many mammals away with small charges, so that they are scared and out of the area as much as possible. So maybe you could include that in your approach as well, with a double curtain, because we think it works.
More of a question or a...
Well, that's the way we deal with it. Also in how do you call it? In coordination with the environmental request. So your double curtain we use. We think it works, but we don't know already enough how it works and how good it works. So we start already chasing the mammals away. So maybe you could include that in the whole approach with the double curtain. Okay. I don't know whether you have had any reference on that.
I mean, let me just, 2 sentences. One good thing about simulation is, compared to measurements, is that you can analyze all the interactions and the effects. So you just don't see quantities as an output, but you can also analyze why are these quantities at that level. So the simulation offers you a much better understanding of all the effects.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Manfred. I think you can take this conversation over the break. Thank you again. A big round of applause for Manfred. And we're going to move from acoustic noise to online information portals about munitions at sea. And I would like to call to the stage Dr. Thorsten Kiefer, Executive Director at JPI Oceans.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Good, yeah. And hold on with the clicker thing.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Big button.
Yeah, big button. Oh, and I have the magic thumb. Yes, so this is going to be low tech, you know. We just I think we're on the high tech end, low tech, very relaxed. Just to complete that, I'm standing here, but two people in my team are Jella Canciora and Paul Trautendorfer, and Paul Trautendorfer is actually here at the meeting and happy to ask all the questions. I'm taking a European perspective because JPI Oceans is a network of countries in Europe and then agreeing on topics that are of importance to many countries, and munition is one of them. So what we created, and that is the technology piece, that is a portal, basically a website, munitionsinthesea.eu. Kindly hosted by Fraunhofer ICT, and Armin Kessler is also somewhere here, being the champion here. It's managed by JPI Oceans, but updated via an editorial process with experts, many of you, and it is accessible openly. You see this banner picture, and actually it's a picture I absolutely love, and I've shown at the last Kiel Munition Clearance Week 4 years ago. It's obviously not a real mine and bomb or grenade. It's art, the artistic expression. It's sculptures in the shallow seas of Mexico in this case, and can be visited by divers. I just love it. I thought I should look at what it did over the years since the last Kiel Munition Clearance Week, and so that's the grenade, how it looks like. Visited by divers here, pretty much overgrown and yeah, affected. And the same here actually for the bomb or the grenades. Yeah, seawater does something to things that are in there. It's just really a bit of a detour about the topic of corrosion. Okay, back to the portal itself. So the purpose really is to connect experts across disciplines and domains, and to collect information, latest information, share innovation, spread knowledge beyond in Europe, across Europe, beyond that, and enable practitioners dealing with munition to do just maybe a better job than without access to information. And there's also an element of educating the public. The elements in the portal are basically there on the landing page of this website, underlined here. There's a central element, three topical information blocks about mapping and classification, for archival research, field survey, data analytics. There's a block about risk assessment, environmental, human, economic, and security risks. These are all text, a little bit like in this screenshot. And then there's also the logical sequence that we all know, the value chain about the remediation, whether leave in place or blast or recover or treat. And maybe just a quick word, because this is just was such an active discussion on blasting. In JPI Oceans, we also have underwater noise as a topic. And we have funded 5 projects that are now quite matured that do research on the topic. And the more I take it, the more you look into it, the more they find how devastating actually noise is for ecosystems or for biota. And it's absolutely not just the enigmatic ones, the dolphins and the porpoises. It's actually also the invertebrates and plankton. So I don't know what to do, I mean, exactly, but be prepared that the topic of noise might become more prominent in environmental protection. Good. There's also then a bit, quite some information that is more gathering of data with the groundwork. For example, on projects and initiatives, an overview, and on national and regional coordination. For example, HELCOM kind of being typically a leader in that field, but other sea basins also have some coordinated efforts. And as the number of research innovation projects grows, we also try to keep track of it and then have some information here in this central place, like here in the example of Muni Risk. Also, there's information about who are the main actors in Europe, here Fraunhofer Institute being featured, but we have them all there, and also with contact information, what is their expertise and so on. For example, I imagine for media it could be quite helpful if you want specific information and maybe have someone explain it to you in Danish. Send them to Hans. And now we also have some array of key events that are happening, even though this is not intended as a news site, but key events like this one should also be mentioned here. And then there's a back end at this point, a central repository for marine munition-related publications. That's quite a bit of work, and also to keep it updated, and will be at some point be also publicly available. This is somehow ever ongoing work, I should say. And here's also the educational element, a page in with simplified language. Again, maybe journalism could find an entry place here, but also interested public. So where are we going? And actually, where did we come from and where are we going? What's the trajectory of this? We started off as a knowledge hub, and now we have a knowledge portal. The knowledge hub was a network of experts supported by the countries where you see the little flags here, member countries of JPI Oceans, and actually quite a few of you here in the room have been part of this at some point or throughout as experts, so thank you for that. And then at some point this group decided it would require something like a central place, a central hub for information collection and sharing and distribution. So that's what we have now. The steps were, for example, then brainstorming alongside the last Kiel Munition Clearance Week in 2021 here, with these very analog collection of ideas here on the boards, and then 3 years later, last year, the portal launched, the lower picture there, with also Christos Economou from the European Commission attending, and should mention Klaus Böttcher, who was the champion of leading the expert group and the munition portal generation. Production. Good. We also now went from voluntary engagement to project-funded work, and that's actually quite an important step. In the beginning, it was really voluntary work, so again, thank you everyone who contributed to that, but that only leads you so far. And now as the Commission, the European Commission, has picked up on the topic, not the least, I would say, by our effort to raise the topic, bring it to the attention. Now there are quite a few projects, and now with these project funds, we can now, in a way, professionalize also the updating of the portal here through Minesweeper and the camera projects. The current efforts on the portal is, well, the third bullet here, maybe setting up a mechanism for continuous updates. So we are establishing annual editorial meetings, but also in between, the idea is to have quarterly content updates to really stay abreast of quite a dynamic field, as I do notice. So we're adding content, also revising the structure to keep it up with the discussion, and then also thinking about a long-term strategy for sustaining a portal. Right. And the more visionary elements are to further Europeanize, so broaden it to all of Europe. We do have like here, a bit of a gravitation towards Germany being the leader, but that should not exclude us from really involving European partners, countries, experts. We can work on gender balance and have the idea to provide information in further languages, and then really become also an archive for the legacy of projects that have concluded or are concluding. And you see here this cloud of logos of such projects, and Aero, so the three of them, Aeromoose and the Helmholtz project, and yeah, the two are concluding. So, okay, projects are concluding, obviously. Let me see, what else we have? Okay, and with that, I thank you, and I invite you to spot the typo on this slide. Thank you.
Spot the title of this.
The title.
Thank you. Thanks you.
welcome.
So thank you so much for this presentation. Actually, it was very interesting because every time I came up with a question, your next slide was the answer to my question. But if we don't have any questions from the audience, I wanted to ask, so in terms of gender balance, you were saying you only, I'm assuming it's mostly men?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, I think this room pretty much
Exactly,
is a
exactly.
good test.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, the pool of experts is as it is, but somehow it seems if something, well, munition seems to be maybe traditionally attract rather men than women, but yeah, it's a general trend that we now believe that outcome a group is stronger through diversity, and that does include gender diversity. So.
And are you going to undertake any sort of initiative to bring more women, maybe like reaching out to universities, schools, STEM programs?
I think that would be a little bit beyond our capacities.
Okay.
I think we are rather hoping for a bit of indirect encouragement, and then actually also by really bringing in more women into the core group of the portal, so that they get visibility, and that then encourages young professionals to take that path. Yeah.
Thanks. We have a question from the audience over there.
The question is a comment. I think that perhaps the men don't see short women at all.
Thank you for the comment. And thank you, Thorsten, for your presentation. It's very interesting. Moving on, I would like to, we've talked a lot about what happens underwater, but there is an element that is quite surprising, is what also happens above water, above the line. So to talk about this, I would like to call here Dr. Eckhard Wellbrock, professor at the Department of Mechanical Engineering at the University of Applied Sciences. Dr. Professor, thank you very much for being here today.
Ladies and gentlemen, in Kiel we say moin. My name is Eckhard Wellbrock, and the last 25 years I was developing processes and machinery for high volume mass production. And today I want to give a suggestion how the delaboration processes of UXOs could happen over water. If you want to develop a process, we have to think about the cycle time. And we heard today plenty of times that there are around about 1.6 million tons of UXOs dammed to the sea. But what does it mean? We have to ask the question, when do we want to finish our task? Today we heard plenty of times that we already started. But when do we want to finish? And my question is, what is the average weight of these bombs? In the best case, we've got a cycle time of 100 seconds per piece. In the worst case, we've got a cycle time of 10 seconds per piece. So what does it mean? We need fully automated inline processes, and we have to adapt conventional processes to the new requirements. If we have a look on a typical delaboration process, I'm not talking about the things happens underwater. We've seen a lot of impressive things about this today. I start with the retrievement, how to lift the objects from the seabed. We have to do an analysis, shape, composites, and conditions. We have to analyze before we treat these objects. Then we've heard today a lot about wet storage. My suggestion is to do this on the platform. We need a cutting process, we need the screening, that means separation of the objects we cutted, and we need a filtering, and also the combustion at the end. On the left-hand side, you see a typical crane to handle objects, and we've seen this kind of gripper plenty of times today. And we also heard about developing new kind of grippers. But is it really the right way? Do we have any impression by the gripper to our ombuds? And do we have enough time to lift our objects by such kind of crane? I say no. And if we have a look around to other conventional processes we use, there are different processes to retrieve these objects from the seabed, and we can do this much faster than picking them up by crane. So my suggestion is, do it like we do on rail track refreshment. Let's have a kind of shovel, let's have a kind of hook, and especially let's have a kind of conveying system. If we retrieve the objects onto our platform, we have to do analysis. We have to cut them, and therefore we have to analyze the shape. We have to do analysis of the conditions of the objects, and we want to know what is inside. We know from conventional processes different kind of detection methods. We all know laser sensors, for example, to get a tessellated object, a shape of these things. We know, for example, camera systems. We can also use sound. If my object is filled or not, we can hear this by the sound. We can use special technologies like X-ray. But altogether, we have to use special analysis methods and probably supported by artificial intelligence. We can also do process monitoring. We know this from conventional processes. And we can use digital twins to increase the performance of our processes. The cutting process. I found this video of the conventional cutting process. How long does it take to cut off one slice of such bomb? In my opinion, too long. Other things I found, this is also the cutting of the objects. You see here water jet cutting, and it's proven. We use this in industry since 25 years, and it speed up our cutting process. It's a high flexibility, and the best thing is there's no impact like sawing. We don't have wear out, we don't have swore. We can fasten up our projects and our processes very much. And we need a planning of the cutting process. Therefore, we use virtual commissioning, like we use this from conventional processes. And for the virtual commissioning, we use process models, we use behavior models, we use kinematic models, and we use object models. And all this together, we can create a process planning by this, we can create a trajectory by this, and we can create process parameters by this. And here, for example, if you have a bomb diameter of 500 millimeters and maybe a length of 1.5 meters, and we want to cut it into 30 slices, we need by 2 robots round about 75 seconds per bomb. The next thing is, what happens with these objects after we cutted them into pieces? We have to do screening. We have to separate them into different pieces because we need a special weight, a special volume for the combustion. We cannot just pour everything inside, we have to separate them. Therefore, typical processes like sieving, like gates, where we can separate, where we can screen the objects, could be useful. We do this also in industry since 25 years, even for dangerous goods. And also, if we want to process with water, we have to filter the water to bring the water back into the process, not to pour it into the ocean, but to reuse it. Therefore, typical drum filters are, in my opinion, a suitable way. Finally, if I arrange all these process steps in a line, it could look like this. At the beginning, after retrieving, we have the analysis. Then we have a buffer on the platform, a storage on the platform, not on the seabed. we need different or plenty or more than one cutting cells. In this case, I arranged 7 here in this case. And after this, we need the screening and we need the combustion. And why should we do this way? Because it's scalable. On the one hand, I can add additional cells to cut our objects. On the other hand, I can scale it down. One cell, in my opinion, could also fit in a typical 40 feet high cube standard container. So I can also use it on land side if I want to remove any bombs and mines there. Yeah. Altogether, we can use this 3D model for a digital twin. In this case, my suggestion is to use 3 different kinds of digital twins at the beginning. If we want to generate our process, if we want to plan our process, but also if we want to drive our process, we can use a digital engineering twin. Then we've got the digital process twin for the drive of this process. And finally, we need an analysis twin because we want to use the information and we want to use the information we got from the processes back to improve our processes and to adapt this to other kind of munition. For example, if you have small gun bullets or if you have big mines, you need different processes. And this could also be an advantage of this cell concept because you can use one cell for small objects and one cell for the big objects. And altogether, these approaches we know already from conventional processes. It's a typical thing of the SimTT Institute at the Fachhochschule Kiel. And we are experts in process planning and processing. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this presentation. So I'm not sure if you said at the beginning, if you did, my apologies for not catching it, but what did you try this on already? What type of munition did you look at when you were thinking about all these elements that you brought up?
What kind of munition?
Yeah.
In my opinion, any munition. Anything that is dumped onto the seabed.
Okay, so as you were saying.
But as we've seen this morning, we've seen these wooden boxes with only the small bullets. But we also seen pictures today from typical bombs dropped by airplane or torpedoes. In my opinion, we have to find solutions that are flexible enough to proceed to process as well the small things as the big things.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 questions there, so please just be straight to the point.
Yes, hi, my name is Alexander Badek. I'm from BAM in Berlin. I just have a question. Oh, pardon me. I just have a question. Were you considering if in the case of a detonation that you would have a propagation effect if you had this cell structure? Had you considered the safety implications?
Actually, if something explodes, you have to ensure that the pressure can blow off a controlled way. On the one hand, we can just build massive walls, but that's not the solution. We need special, I call it a valve technology, to ensure that the pressure, the air can blow up, and then you have to ensure that no objects will flow out of the cell. Actually, if something explodes inside such automatic cell, probably it's broken. But this is something you cannot avoid, in my opinion. We had the discussion this lunch. How probably is the danger of explosion. And the question is, are these bombs active or not? And yes, probably there are bombs that are active on the seabed, but if you lift them per gripper, or if you want to put them into boxes, you have the same problem. And even if you lift them up and you place them on your platform, that's the latest point when you have the same problem like in a conveyor automatic inline process.
Okay, thank you. You can continue the conversation during the break. The second question, please.
Stock from DynaSafe, a very interesting presentation. The first point which I have is, if you talk about arms, which is up to 50, 60 millimeter, I think at the moment there's technology on the market which is able to cope without cutting. So you have to think about what is really, from the economic point of view, a good process. The second question, which came already here, is what is about sympathetic detonations? So if you have such a process line and you have a starting of a detonation that will go through, and then we have more or less the whole process line destroyed. And in relation to that, is that all munition which is fused or unfused, which you're coping with? I think there's a big difference between fused munition and unfused munition.
The first thing is, by the analysis at the beginning, I can decide if I need to cut an object or if it's small enough to bring it directly into the combustion. To the second question, I did not really understand the question. My answer is another question. Is there any other process where we don't have the danger of explosion?
Okay, so no, food for thought. This is to be continued during the break. Sorry, we are on a very tight schedule. So thank you so much, Dr. Wellbrock, for these presentation and for these questions. And last but certainly not least, we will continue the conversation about ocean data, and this time with a management platform and the latest breakthrough in large-scale data processing. And for this, I'd like to call here to the stage Dr. Philip Dow, account executive at North IO. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Philip Dow, North IO. Thank you very much for your patience. I think I'm the last thing standing between you and the beautiful cake over there, so I try to keep into my 10 minutes. Today also you've probably seen our logo here, there, in places on this conference. So we from North IO are an ocean data specialist and actually want to enable you to better process and understand your ocean data. And the question also that we ask ourselves is why it's actually hard to understand ocean data, and at least we have 4 reasons that we believe play into this in a big part. One is the visibility. So the problem is that everything we do here is basically subsea data. So everything is under the ocean surface, and the human eye is not made to actually see under the ocean surface. So it's actually way harder to get the data we need from subsea data than it is on terrestrial data surveying that we usually do. The second thing, it's also way more expensive because we have to involve specialized software, sensors, a lot of manpower as well. It's way harder and more costly to get the data we want to work with. The third part is highly dynamic, not just the geological dynamic about sediment changes as well, but also the current geopolitical landscape. There's a lot of change looking at the defense, protection of critical underwater infrastructure. So what we want to have is we want to have the data fast and create very fast insights as well. And the last thing is the data. I myself actually come more from a terrestrial background and had to realize there are a lot of different data formats, sensor types, different kind of software that you can use, and there's not much standardization of how we use the software, and that's where we come into play. We also have a stand downstairs with 3 different parts we want to show you about our data management and processing capabilities. But we actually have a mission at North IO to guide people by understanding and mapping the complexity of this world. We have been in business for around 15 years. You probably also have seen our CEO Jan Wendt here and there on this conference, and I think he will speak later on today as well. And within these 15 years, we grow to actually 70 people, highly specialized in ocean data. We have hydrographers, geophysical engineers, front and back-end developers to actually give you the technology that you need to handle your ocean data and everything that happens under the ocean's surface. And this is just probably not a complete picture, but at least a rough overview of how we get different kind of underwater data. So we have to survey, we have to store the data in a secure way. There's a lot of quality checks happening as well. And there we get to the bits and pieces of pre- and data processing. We get to the step of analytics. But the question is, why do we go through this whole chain of taking data, storing it, checking it, and analyzing it? Because we want to get to an insight and then want to make actionable decisions on what we want to do with the insights we gather from the data. So the data is just a tool we use to understand our environment. It's not the reason why we actually do our work. It's just a tool that we use to get information out of it. But this whole cycle of where the data goes through is basically cut into two parts, at least from our perspective. One is the data management aspect. So it's the where do we store the data, how do we do quality control, and how do we make sure that the stakeholders that need the data get it very fast and in a high quality manner. And the second part is the data processing bit. Obviously, if we have found this distinction between the two things, we also develop software to tackle it. One of that is our ocean data management platform, which we'll also present downstairs if you want to stop by. And it's really about that we just uncover what is out there. We want to know what data is available, what is not available, and actually make it digestible for everybody, not just GIS specialists, but also non-geo specialists and non-versed users. So the biggest aspect that we have here with the platform is that we support natively over 40 supported file types. So it could be multi-beam, sensor data, seismic data, PDFs, vectors, rasters. There's a lot of a big portfolio of files we already support. And the idea is to make it really, really easy to share and access the data from basically anywhere in the world. It could be in your office, it could be on the survey vessel, or even if you working remotely, just that you always have access to the data that is most critical for you as well. The second part is the data processing. So in collaboration with NVIDIA, we developed the data, an ocean data processing engine. And the idea is actually that we want to overcome this traditional thinking of we have geodata and we put it into grids and process everything bit by bit just because our computational resources were limited in the last 25 years. So everything we do is basically based on cloud computing and parallel programming to make it just way easier to process data, even in big chunks. So we're talking about tera and petabytes of data that needs to be processed. And the idea behind all of this is that we first reduce the cost, so we make it easier for everybody to process the data. But the second thing, we really want to reduce the time to insights, so the delivery time it takes from the data being surveyed under the seafloor to actual insight that we want to create. In a perfect world, we would have systems operating on the vessel. Data would be surveyed, it's uploaded into the cloud, we can do the quality checks, and immediately from the office on shore, people can start the processing, and within minutes, they have the first insights into their data. And we really want to avoid people sending the vessel out a second time, incurring a lot of costs, and actually just a lot of waiting time until you get the insight that you want to need. But the question is always, if it's research, if it's commercial, so what? Why do we do all this, and what's the impact that we see? We have 4 examples of how our solution already provides benefits and hopefully does even more in the future. The first, and that's not very surprising at the Munition Climate Week, it's UXO. We also help the local state ordnance service as well with this. So it's really important that we understand what happens in the ocean. We want to locate UXO. We want to help manage the databases and really enable our stakeholders a way to just make ordnance clearance quicker and more structured. The second thing is critical underwater infrastructure. There was also a lot of examples, not just this year, but also the recent years, why it's important that we protect our COI within Europe. Very big parts here play change and object detection. If you think about the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, with near real-time data, we could actually run processing algorithms that help us understand what kind of objects might have occurred there, and then again pass on this intelligence to the relevant stakeholders so they can take action and protect our valuable assets. The second part is offshore energy. This is also a big growing market and very important for the renewables. And they have a massive need to better understand their ocean data, both on the offshore developer side, but also the surveyor side themselves. And we want to be the puzzle piece between those two stakeholders to just make data communication easier and get everybody on board, even if you're a highly specialist surveyor who knows his or her data in and out, but also if you are a CFO or somebody who does the tendering and permits, that they get access to all the data that are available and actually turn it into a strategic asset that it is. The final thing, and that's also the host of this event, the MECON, our environment ministry, we work with them for, I think, over a year and a half now, and they started to opting using our platforms to basically manage the data, involve the metadata and also enrich a lot of non-geo data and make it spatially findable, which helps them to basically get the data out to responsible stakeholders for the environmental protection, coastal protection, and also climate change adaptation. So we have the two parts. We have the data management and the data processing aspect, which definitely helps our clients a lot of managing and understanding their data better and way faster than they did before. If you want to know more, this is just a picture of the stand. Just go downstairs next to the drinks and the snacks. We're happy to give you a demo, either of the management capabilities we have, the processing, and also turning historical data into new insight. If you also want to have the slides, feel free to reach out. I'm not quite sure if we share them with the audience later on, but if you're interested in the slides or the demo, feel free to talk to us. There's a bunch of us downstairs, happy to give you a product demo and also happy to answer your questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Philippe, for this good to-the-point presentation, right on time. And waiting to see if we have an extra question from the audience, I wanted to ask you, so you talked about data management and data processing. I'm assuming this data needs to be stored somewhere. Where is it stored?
So basically our default option is we work with a German cloud provider called Ionos. Some people might know them from the 1&1 advertisement in the television or the former Formula 1 sponsorship. So we plan to store everything in the cloud. Obviously, if we move more into CUI, critical underwater infrastructure, and maritime defense, we have to look at on-premise solutions as well, just because the data is their most strategic asset, and they want to host the data on on-premise solutions. So this is why we also support to deploy our software on their services. But the idea is really that there needs to be one central data management hub, because otherwise you will not get to the very smart AI and processing capabilities, because if you first have to look for your data, no processing algorithm can be very performant. So it's really important that you get your data management right before you look into the next step of actually how do I process my data in a fast and correct way.
Thanks. I know we have a question from the audience over there.
Thank you. My name is Gabriele Dudek, also from the Federal Institute for Materials Research and Testing. And we combine here data of explosives, which are dangerous products or dangerous components, and critical infrastructure. And I would like to ask, how do you address security issues to avoid an unintended use of your data?
So basically there's a lot of layers of security that are established. I mean, I would say if you do it on premise, then it's also like the responsibility of the IT infrastructure of our client. Then we're kind of a bit on the second sideline here. If you look at the cloud solution, there's a lot of security, I would say protection layers as well. So there's just that we only host the data in Germany, which is very important to our clients, that we don't host it, for example, in the US. We have role-based access control. So basically there's an administration layer happening from the client. And we have a lot of threat detection as well on our IT systems that we could prevent unauthorized access as well. And we're also testing this more and more now to actually look into secure network, looking at maritime operations, looking at red secured networks as well on how to host it there and make it really protective. But there are a lot of protection layers. Obviously, you have your logins, you have your securely credentials where we have two-factor authentication. There's already a lot of layers, and there potentially will also become more layers in the future. If we have those use cases and potentially also more experience with other users on what kind of bottlenecks they run into, and then we try to develop the solution that best fits their use case.
Thanks. Was there a second question from the audience? Yep. Second and last.
Good. Thank you very much. So you, North.io is building a business on data, which is great. Now there are discussions, it seems, of different kinds. Some people in the policy sphere in particular feel that all data should be publicly available. And I wonder whether you guys have, whether you guys have an opinion on that. Again, I could have moved. Because my intention would also be that publicly funded data in particular, they should be made available and so on. But on the other hand, people like yourself or companies like yourself need to have a basis for a business to really scale up the whole data generation and data processing business. So do you have an attitude, a wish for politics in this case, for data policies?
Yeah, we definitely do. I think it's a lot of different days. If you look at the file-based way, we do a lot of open source components. Obviously, our business case is we are consulting on data and we're building software, which has to be proprietary. That's basically our business case. But all the data formats that we try to unlock will be open source. So if users want to share it away from our platforms, they are invited to do so because they're readable from every place. The vision of our data management platform would be in a perfect world, and we're probably 5, 10, 15 years down the line, that everybody have their own instance of what we call TrueOcean, our data platform. And you could send me a request and say, Philip, do you have data available in this parcel of the earth? Can send a request, and I can decide if I make the data available to you, if I want to sell it to you. Maybe it's public data anyway, but we want to bring all the data into kind of an ecosystem. And there's also the whole Gaia X thing. It's a big architecture about that all of these workspaces can interconnect and communicate so that we break up these data silos and actually make data more available. But the most important thing, and that's a question I get very often in product demos, North.io doesn't own any data. We have the platform, we have the tools and solutions, but the clients upload their own proprietary data that they maybe paid a lot of money to surveying, include public data from WMS services, other archives as well, for example. But we really just give the solutions and offer help and support in understanding the data. We do not broker or sell any data. This idea would be later on. We have thousands of TrueOcean licenses out in the world, and everybody can interconnect, send requests, and basically exchange the data. And we would be very much in for, I would say, open source data, but we can see that a survey company cannot gift away the data because they also invest a lot of money. But that would be the perfect idea. We have an ecosystem of platforms interconnected so that we can make ocean data sharing easier and also more affordable.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Philip, for this. And big round of applause for Philip. Release you all for the break. I just have one message that I wanted to give you. You may have noticed that there is another panel this afternoon, which starts at 4:35, but there is also a workshop going on at the same time in room Denmark across the hall there. That workshop is organized by Munimap. You have Katarzyna here who will be able to give you more information should you need it. And the idea is to have 3 roundtables, one on technology, one on data needs, and one on policy changes. And to have people coming over to those roundtables and be able to say, have your say, basically, if there are any issues that you think are important, that you think should be looked at in terms of, as I said, technology, data needs, or policy changes, you get a chance to discuss them, and then they will get a chance to report that information, but Katarzyna will tell you more about that. So workshop at 4:35 in room Denmark over there, or panel at 4:35 here. In the meantime, enjoy your coffee.